guys, and welcome to episode 3 of For What It's Nerd. I'm Peralta, and in this episode, we're going to be discussing the MCU, specifically the stuff that has come out of San Diego Comic-Con last weekend. I'm here with Chazzlet, a good friend of mine. Chazzlet, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, we've got a lot to discuss today. Primarily, we're going to be looking at She-Hulk, specifically because She-Hulk's going to be coming out so soon. We're also going to be looking at Black Panther, specifically the trailers for those two, we should say. And then kind of after that, we're going to be looking at kind of general, the rest of the stuff that's kind of come out of Comic-Con, right? Specifically around Marvel for this one. But yeah, so I think, like I say, we should start with She-Hulk because She-Hulk is coming out. We were talking about this just before we went kind of live to start recording. Around about two weeks' time, I think it's something like that. August. I forget its date exactly, but it's very soon.
Is it like August 10th or something? I feel like that's a date. I
want to say something like that, but it could be wrong. But it's definitely like early mid-August. It's definitely around that range.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about She-Hulk. So I don't know if you know, I might have mentioned it in passing before, but I am a very big She-Hulk fan. I've read a lot of her comics. Like, I think when I first started getting into Marvel comics, I read a lot of Fantastic Four, but I also read a lot of She-Hulk, primarily because She-Hulk kind of comes out of the Fantastic Four. She's in the Fantastic Four for a while, taking over from the Thing. So I think that's where I kind of got my She-Hulk interest. But I'm really looking forward to the show. What are you looking forward to the show?
Oh, I'm looking forward to the show. Yeah, absolutely. Another female heroine. Always going to be very excited for that, obviously.
She's different as well, right? Isn't she? You've got like your Captain Marvels and you've got like your Scarlet Witches and stuff like that, but She-Hulk's very different to those, right? And not even just from like a standpoint of like, not even just a standpoint of power set, because She-Hulk's very brawler-esque. She's very like on the ground melee, as compared to like, I mean, Captain Marvel does that a bit, but she's got superpowers in the sense of like she's got photon blasts. It's a little bit different, right? But She-Hulk's very in the middle of the fight, so there's that. But also, She-Hulk has this very funny thing that a lot of people will attribute to Deadpool, right? The kind of the comedy, and I think
and the fourth wall breaking and things like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, what is actually interesting is, and I do love this. I like this is my little like. Do you know when you have like some party information? Like you keep this information for a party, and then you're like, this is what I say at parties to intrigue people. She-Hulk actually. She-Hulk not only did it first, she did it before Deadpool was even created. Like that's how much She-Hulk kind of set the boundary for what fourth wall breaking is. I mean, there's specifically a comic book issue where She-Hulk walks from one panel to the end of the book. She breaks through the comic so that she can just beat the hero, the villain, pretty much straight away. And I love that. How what a brilliant way of using the comic book panels to represent the story, right? Like, we always love when a comic book panel does something different to just being a little box. And in that instance, it does, and it's really fun. So I really do like that. But yeah, we've kind of slightly sidetracked. The show. Yes. So what were your first impressions of the trailer? What did you think of the trailer? The most recent one.
The most recent one. I'm very intrigued by it. I mean, we've seen a lot of like more like side characters that are going to be coming in. I mean, we've got Tim Roth coming back as Abomination, and I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I'm glad they're bringing him back specifically for it because I like how it just ties in with the Incredible Hulk itself.
Yeah,
his cameo in Shang-Chi.
Yes.
And I like how that's all tied together. They haven't just recast him from I know how way back when Incredible Hulk was like
2008 I think 2008 I think it was if I remember correctly, or 2009. It's one of those. It's very early on, and the thing is, it's not just early on. It was distributed by Universal and everything. It was a totally different time for Marvel, just generally, right? Like I think it's one of the few movies that isn't really considered MCU, even though it is, right? Like people don't really think about it, but now it's like it's basically called watching now, because if you don't watch that, you're not going to understand. I mean, obviously you can pick it up, it's not going to be hard, but you're not going to really fully understand why, for example, in the trailer, Jennifer Walters is saying, I literally have a conflict of interests here. He tried to kill my cousin. Like, you get that. Kill my cousin Bruce. Yeah. You get that on the surface level, right? You get the, like, well, yes, this big green thing tried to kill this other big green thing. Like, you get that. But the underlying weight of it is removed, right? But like it's like you say, Tim Roth coming back for it is really good, because it just reinforces the idea that this is the MCU. Right? Like, we have so many times where I think, especially in Phase 4, people have wondered, is this becoming less and less connected? And I think kind of going back to that is very nice. And it happens as well in this with Wong, which is a very nice callback again to the Shang-Chi part of the thing.
Yeah, Wong's just like popping up everywhere.
I was going to say it. I knew you wanted to say it. I knew you wanted to say it.
Look, I've got notes. I made notes on, like,
I love notes.
Right?
Brilliant.
I've got
Brilliant.
notes
I love
on,
that.
like, everything. And one of my notes, literally here, it just says Wong. He's
Wong. I love
Wong.
it. It's the Wong cinematic universe now. No, but I am.
It's the Wong cinematic universe.
It is, and I actually do love that Wong's in it. I think because what it does is it sets, because I think some people expected She-Hulk to just be very, like, street level is the wrong word, because you're dealing with Hulks, which aren't necessarily street level, but I think we expected almost She-Hulk to be very, very, like, ordinary, quote unquote, very, like, you know, it's a Hulk but in a courtroom, and that's kind of it, right? But I think Wong being in it, and specifically it looks like he's in it a relatively decent amount of time, kind of elevates the story, because it's not just about kind of street level, again, to use that term very loosely. It's about also magic users to an extent as well. There's some magic in this. You know, people aren't hiding kind of like this extra kind of this magical element of the MCU so much anymore, and I think it's really good that that's actually showing up in this. But talking about street level, and I hate to just jump to it, but certain guy behind me is going to be showing up as well. I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm holding a Daredevil statue for those listening on Spotify or Apple.
You have no idea how hyped I am for the amount of Daredevil that's coming in the MCU.
I know. Yeah, I mean, he's a really good actor. He's done really good at the role, right? He did amazingly in the Netflix show, and it's very exciting. Obviously, he came back in No Way Home, and then obviously he was rumored, but I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point to show up in Echo. And then obviously
it's definitely confirmed that he's in Echo.
Yes, so confirmed in Echo, and obviously he's going to be in She-Hulk as well. And that's before, I mean, obviously I think we can kind of tangentialize, I think that's a word, I've made it up now if it's not, onto Born Again quickly. Daredevil Born Again, which is going to be 18 episodes of Daredevil.
I think I actually screamed when that popped up.
Yeah.
It's like, all the MCU shows have been either like 6 episodes or 8 or 10. And then, Daredevil's going to be 18 episodes. And I'm just like...
It's the biggest... because, I mean, the next biggest one is Andor. Now, that's a Star Wars show. I don't know if you know much about it, but essentially that's meant to be 12 episodes long. So, for a season. So, I mean, we're talking kind of more to what we used to get in terms of shows, right? Back when, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did, like, 22 episode seasons. And I'm not angry about it. Like, I'm not saying that every show needs to be 18 episodes long. I'm not saying that every show should be, like, super, super long, because I don't think it serves every show. But I think because Daredevil is in a situation now where you're probably going to have Jessica Jones showing up, you're probably going to have Iron Fist, Luke Cage, you know, I imagine She-Hulk will also cross over, and Echo will probably cross over into this as well.
Cross over into it, yeah.
Exactly. So you're going to have a lot of things to kind of cover. And I feel like it's worthwhile to have 18 episodes of Daredevil. It might not be worthwhile to have 18 episodes of, let's say, I'm trying to think, Agatha, for example. Agatha might work as a 6 episode, show. But but maybe some don't. And I think it's better to, like a movie runtime, right? If you have 2.5 hours, a movie, that's because the plot needs it, right? If you then have a movie that's just 2 hours, or if you have a movie that's 3 hours, it's because they need that extra half an hour, or they don't need that extra half an hour to tell the story that they're going to tell. And I think that's important, right? It shouldn't be just, right, let's get it to 2 hours every single time, because that's not beneficial to anyone, right? Like, it just feels like you've kind of you're artificially making the story, right?
No, you need to set it out how it needs to be set out. If it needs longer, if it needs shorter, it needs shorter. If you need more episodes but a shorter length, or less episodes at a longer length, it's just how things work out, depending on the storyline, the characters, crossovers, everything.
Exactly.
Like
Well, but that kind of rounds us back to She-Hulk, actually, what you were just saying there, because She-Hulk is meant to be about 30 minutes long for each episode. So there's like 9 episodes of She-Hulk, but I think it's the idea that these episodes will be 30 minutes each and be comedic. They're kind of like a sitcom courtroom. It's like that kind of situation, right? So it's very different to WandaVision, which was very, like, WandaVision had 2 very small episodes to begin, but then moved into essentially normal episodes, right? Because it was trying to tell a story through the timing of the episodes as well, as much as it was telling a story through the actual story, the narrative, so to speak. But I'm very excited for She-Hulk, because I think, again, I feel like She-Hulk is doing very similar to WandaVision, actually. Because I feel like it's doing something that hasn't been done before, right? Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, they're going in a very different direction with it. I mean, like we're going on about the fourth wall breaks. The only thing that does that at the minute is Deadpool. It's obviously going to do it in a very different way to Deadpool, but it's doing it. It's like the first proper MCU thing to do it, because Deadpool's obviously not fully MCU. But
it's outside of the MCU. It's going to be it's moving towards MCU status, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be for a while, and so they're kind of pioneering this within the MCU with She-Hulk. Now, I don't know if you saw it, there's been a little bit of like a behind-the-scenes kind of BTS kind of style trailer that came out for She-Hulk as well. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And in that, it kind of refers to this, right? Because she looks to the camera and she says, I don't want you to think this is like a cameo of the week, which was like brilliant marketing, by the way.
It was brilliant. I love that.
It sells the show, but it also sells the cameos, right? And so it's like I hope you don't think it's a cameo every week type of show. But I mean, it kind of almost feels like that. And in a way, I think that's what people want, but also kind of are interested in seeing how that works out for the show. I think She-Hulk has the potential. One of the biggest potentials to add cameos without it hurting the show, because you can always do it in the sense of the courtroom, right? You can instantly do a scene that actually matters to She-Hulk or to Jennifer or to the villain in question, but it can be over relatively quickly. It can be the start of an episode, for example. I mean, you know how shows are set up sometimes, where they have like you have like kind of like, I think there's an episode of Daredevil where there's a courtroom scene to begin the episode. But then that courtroom sort of tension isn't to do with the actual episode at all. It's just that it's setting up Matt as a good lawyer. It's setting up Matt as having done some work for the day almost, in a sense, right? So it kind of like, you can do that very easily. You can add characters without hurting anything, as compared to like throwing 3 different characters into any other property and it kind of being like, well, why are they all there? You know?
Yeah, it's going to be easy, like not so much shoehorn cameos in, but like like a sprinkle of them. It like you said, it doesn't have to be long. It could be literally like this one courtroom scene and then it's done.
Yeah.
Get loads of different cameos in there. And I mean, she obviously mentioned like, Hulk cameos, but Hulk's obviously going to be a big part of the show, considering.
Yes. You
know, Hulk, She-Hulk, cousins. All
exactly.
That sort of
stuff. He sets up the entire premise of the show, essentially. Because obviously, without him, She-Hulk doesn't exist. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of like necessary, but yeah, I mean, some of them again make sense. I mean, Abomination makes total sense, and I don't really see him as a cameo per se, and Wong as such I don't see as a cameo either. I mean, maybe they are in terms of the actual show and how it ends up going. That might be one episode, but I do feel like they're integral to the kind of story that's going on there, right? Like, I don't feel like they're a cameo as so far as what we've seen so far. Whether that changes or not, who knows? But we haven't spoken about one thing, and I do want to bring this up because I want your opinion on it thus far. The villain, the kind of seeming proper villain of the piece, in Jamila Jamil's Titania or Titania, however you want to say it. Yeah. What are you thinking about Titania?
I'm hoping that she's going to be properly fleshed out as a character.
Yeah.
And not like, because I mean, you've got female hero, female villain, which I'm loving the setup. I'm loving the premise of that. And I know we kind of had that with Kate Bishop and Yelena kind of in Hawkeye.
Yeah, similar-ish.
More of an anti-hero. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that story, there's a justified reason as to why she's there, etc., etc. Yeah.
Yeah. We're obviously going to find out the proper reason why Titania's going to be going against Jennifer within the show. Obviously, I haven't read all of the comics like you. Have you?
I haven't read so much about, but I'll be honest, I haven't read much on. I've read a good bit about She-Hulk, but I don't remember too much about Titania herself. I remember bits and pieces. I remember, for example, that she and She-Hulk have fought a number of times. I know that she is a typical She-Hulk villain, so it's not like just brewed up for no reason. I know, for example, that she is in some bigger events within the Marvel universe, but I don't know too much about her. So I'm kind of game for them to do anything with her, really, myself. I suppose the thing that matters the most is like you say, whether or not that character is developed, whatever that character ends up being. So I think, generally speaking, I'm very much game for anything to happen with that character. I'm very excited about what that character has to kind of show in the show, so to speak. I think what it's like what you say, and I will kind of bears repeating, if she's done kind of one note, unless she's meant to be one note, because maybe she isn't in as much as she's meant to be, or as much as she's kind of being portrayed to be. Maybe she's very one note, but I'm kind of hoping she isn't, because, and now obviously I've been doing some digging around other stuff, and again we said we'll bring other stuff in when necessary or when we feel kind of like we want to. Secret Wars, now that is one of the Avengers movies that is going to be coming out. There is Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and then Secret Wars. Now, interestingly, Secret Wars, there's two different runs of Secret Wars in the comics. One is from 1984, I think. That's plucking from the deep recesses of my memory. I haven't read it, but I've read a lot about it. And again, this one from 2015. Again, I haven't read it, but I've read a lot about it. But the 1984 version, it's very interesting because the 1984 version has a lot of characters in that are kind of forthcoming within the MCU, so to speak. It has for the heroes, it has the Fantastic Four bar Invisible Woman, which is kind of like a big cop-out. Why have you removed one of the best characters from the Fantastic Four? But regardless.
Let's remove the only woman from the Fantastic Four.
Yeah. But then there's the Spider-Woman, which obviously I don't think we'll be getting in the MCU anytime soon. I don't know how that'll work, but I would love to see her. But
they are filming something though, aren't they?
That's Madam Web, though, and that is Sony.
Web, but is she going to be introduced in that?
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% certain, because what we know so far is that, as far as we're aware on Madam Web, is that Dakota Johnson is going to be playing Madam Web. We know that Sydney Sweeney is in it as someone, we don't know who, and then Adam Scott, if I'm remembering correctly, is going to be in it as well. Again, we don't know who, though we do kind of suggest, like the images that are coming out might suggest he's playing like a retired Peter Parker, which might be very, very interesting if that ends up being the case. Again, that could be wild speculation, but it feels like it would fit. But so I mean, who knows? The one thing we do know that Spider-Woman is going to be in right now is the Spider-Verse 2. I don't know the actual title of it. I've forgotten off the top of my head, but she's going to be in that.
It's not. It's Through the Spider-Verse, isn't it?
Through or something like that. But yes,
because the first one was Into. I think this one is Through Part 1.
It might be, yeah. Regardless, she's going to be in that. There's been footage that has come out with her in it. I haven't seen it personally, but it's Spider-Woman and another spider going up against Vulture, so she's going to be in it. But yes. So going back, it was a Fantastic Four, Spider-Woman, Wolverine, Captain America. Spider-Man.
I think I've read about Captain America, yes.
Yeah, and Spider-Man, and interestingly, She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, so
they're obviously going to be tying all of this in together for Secret Wars upcoming.
Which seems to be kind of the insinuation. I mean, obviously, again, it could be totally wrong, but it does seem that way, especially because the villains that they go up against, again, very interesting. Doctor Doom, which is likely upcoming. Kang, which we know is coming, we already know. Titania, she's in it again, upcoming.
Upcoming in She-Hulk,
and I think Magneto, which, I mean, obviously if we're eventually getting the X-Men, Magneto I imagine would show up at some point. And I think Doc Ock. Now I don't know how Doc Ock would necessarily fit in, probably wouldn't because of the situation currently, but if not, I mean, it's still a lot of evidence, especially the villains wise. 3 villains from that run that are going to show up that are essentially adjacent to the heroes and are coming out in short order. I mean, especially because we actually have a lot of those kind of characters sat as well. Like, yes, we don't have Steve Rogers' Cap, but we do have Sam Wilson's Cap. So we still do have Cap around. We still do have Spider-Man. We're going to get the Fantastic Four before Secret Wars. Wolverine obviously isn't a hard one to put in there. Wolverine has a shorthand. You could even have him just show up in Secret Wars for the first time, and it would still work because he's Wolverine, right? But still, I do think he's going to come before that. But what I'm kind of saying is, I do think that Titania, and this is why I'm kind of that big kind of tangent does have a kind of relevance to what I'm saying, is that I do think that if she's done right, she might have a future in one of the biggest Avengers movies probably to ever come out. So it depends on how she's done. It depends on how they do her. But if she's done well, there is a potential future for her as a character. And I'm very excited to see if that does come to fruition, basically, is where I'm kind of going with this.
So we do have
I got there in the end.
I totally agree. As long as she's fleshed out well and isn't supposed to be one tone, she is probably going to come up quite a bit in the future, at the very least in Secret Wars, if not before that in other things, possibly.
I mean, it depends when we see She-Hulk as well. Exactly, it depends on where we kind of see these characters kind of resurfacing, because I think especially with the shows now, I think with She-Hulk changes the game, right? Because She-Hulk and then Daredevil and Echo are kind of adding to the story of the characters kind of coming together again. We've seen very much distinct characters who are set apart. I mean, Moon Knight is very much that. Moon Knight has like literally one reference to any other MCU property, and it's just the ancestral plane. And that's a reference to Black Panther, and that's it. That's like all they discuss in terms of other MCU properties. As far as I remember, there might be some other small references, but still. And then Miss Marvel was essentially the same. I mean, obviously it has the Captain Marvel connection, but for the most part, it was separate. Yes, it had like the Avengers Con thing, but it wasn't connected in the same way. Like, you could say Avengers Con, and like a lot of people, if they were going into a Miss Marvel show, would already know what the Avengers are. You know what I mean? Like, you might not know about like, you might not watch every single movie, but you'd still get that, So like, I don't feel like that's the same as like connectively having for example, Sam Cap show up halfway through. You know what I mean? Like that would be like totally connectivity, right? But anyway, what I'm saying is that I think we're starting to move back towards connectivity now, because we've kind of fleshed out these characters enough or a decent amount, and I'm very excited to see where that goes. I think She-Hulk is basically the grounds for it.
I'm very excited to see lots of different characters coming together again. Lots of things, like you say, they felt very standalone. Like you say, Moon Knight has just felt very standalone. This Marvel, yes, there was the connection to Captain Marvel, and she obviously showed up at that very, very end.
Yes, in the post-credit,
the very, very end of it, and it was very just on its own. Things like that. Even kind of Loki in a way. He's kind of like on his own at this point. It's not the characters with him.
It's weird because Loki season 1 has essentially set up most of what we're dealing with now, but it has
set up the multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was the one that set up the multiverse the most, because even though Doctor Strange kind of was the one to sort of break it, I think it was more that it wouldn't have been breakable if it wasn't for what had happened in Loki. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's almost like, how do I put it? It's almost like Loki unlocked the door and then Doctor Strange went through it, right? Like, that's kind of the kind of what you get from that, right? So, like, I feel like Loki, for what it was, is like you say, very standalone. I mean, the only cameo we really got in that, and again, I don't think cameos are the be all and end all of a project, but I think the only thing we had that was really connective to anything else was Sif, right? And it wasn't actual Sif. It was it was a memory of Sif, which again was very interesting and very cool to see. Is it Jamie Alexander? Is that her name?
Jamie,
I think.
Yeah,
and it was really nice seeing her again, and obviously she has subsequently come back in later stuff as well. But like, I think that's very it was very standalone, like you say. So I think I'm hoping season 2 has a little bit more connectivity, especially because Kang is going to be in Quantumania, right? So I don't know if you saw the kind of announcements around that, but there's a lot of lines in that are very, very suggestive of Kang kind of being this ominous presence that's going to really lurk for a while. I mean, as we know, till Kang Dynasty pretty much. But I think if Loki doesn't kind of build on that, then it's like, or not so much build on it, because it will build on it, but like doesn't like tap into like Quantumania and other things to kind of really broaden the horizon of what we're doing here, then it almost feels like a moot point, right? We don't want Loki, the thing that really set this all off, to be kind of left out. I think that's the kind of the top and bottom of that, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Loki did just set the precedent for the multiverse. He opened the door. I feel like, to put it in different terms, Doctor Strange literally just broke it down and
that's the way of putting it. Yes. Yeah,
literally, because they literally just set all of that up. I mean, I know we've obviously got Jonathan Majors playing He Who Remains in Loki, and Kang is a variant He Who Remains, isn't he?
Yes, that's the idea.
Yeah, because it's also Jonathan Majors playing Kang, which is good. I mean, I enjoyed his portrayal of He Who Remains. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it was very. It was kind of that very serious note, but also very non-serious at the same time, which I know sounds weird to say, but I think it's very true of it. That like you had this whole I'm gonna kind of like be quirky, quippy, and then like no, but like actually this is very serious. It's kind of almost like Yoda. I know that sounds very stupid to say, but it's very that Yoda of like Yoda has this kind of moment of being very comedic, and then he's like, actually, like you are literally going to have to kill the most evil person in the galaxy, or the galaxy's doomed. And it's like, what the fuck, you know? I think it's very like that, right? So again, I do think that. I think there'll be a hark back to Loki within Ant-Man. I just hope that Loki doesn't become, especially because it's getting a second season, it's the only show so far to get a second season, that it needs to be worthwhile for that to be a second season. And I just hope that you get like some kind of plot point that is totally changed because of Ant-Man, or some kind of plot point that brings in a character from Ant-Man, or something akin to that. I think, you know, when you're dealing with something so big as the multiverse, if you're going to multiverse it, you have to actually multiverse it, if that makes sense. Like, you need to have the multiversal character show up again, even if it's just a variant of Scott Lang for whatever reason, or like it's a variant of like someone else, or they meet a million different other Kangs, or a million different other versions of He Who Remains, or something to kind of put into context Ant-Man and Loki at the same time. It's very weird though. I mean, again, just to kind of expand on that Ant-Man and Loki are now probably the projects we're looking to connecting the most. You would never have guessed that. You would never have guessed that back in. No. But there you go. There you go. But I think we've discussed like She-Hulk and kind of the adjacent stuff a lot here. I think maybe if we discuss a little bit regarding Black Panther. I personally, like, don't get me wrong, I obviously I was going to respect this movie regardless of what came out about it, because obviously, sadly, the passing of Chadwick Boseman and the kind of the kind of impact that has not only on Black Panther as a franchise, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole, and us as fans, right, is very big. So, like, I was very respectful of this movie regardless. I would never have went in and, for example, called it trash, or would never have went in and said, I hate this, right? Like, I would never have done that anyway. But I wasn't particularly overly excited about it when they first kind of went through kind of the kind of suggestions for what might be the story. But I think that was before we kind of really knew what it was going to be. I always thought people were kind of pulling our leg about Namor, for example. And I always felt like people were kind of maybe dreaming bigger than it might end up being. Then we get to San Diego Comic-Con last week, and the trailer drops, right? And the Bob Marley cover of No Woman, No Cry.
No Woman, No Cry.
My days, that was like, I was streaming tears. Angela Bassett's delivery of that one line that's in the trailer.
Oh my God.
I'm the most powerful woman in the world, and all of my family is gone, of the biggest nation in the world. I forget how it properly goes, but so powerful of a line.
Yeah,
I'm getting shivers talking about it now. Like, I actually am. I'm getting goosebumps. It just looked beautiful as well. It paid such an homage, but not in a sad way either. You didn't feel like you agree. Obviously, when that line was delivered, you felt very much grief, but like, I think most of the trailer was about life, and kind of like, there's a bit of struggle, but it's life, right? Because when, for example, I think, as far as I'm aware, or I believe this is going to be the case, is that the child that we see born in that kind of water birthing area is more than likely, I think, a Wakandan, right? I think it's more than likely Nakia having a child. I think it might potentially be Black Panther's child. Now, I'm not. That's not confirmed or anything like that. I'm just.
This may be where we disagree, because after watching the trailer and having a look at a few things, I thought it might be Namor, and it might show.
Like it's his backstory.
As him being his backstory, him being born and growing up, especially when you've got that shot in the trailer where you've got like, there's like a child walking out of the water, and then there's another shot.
Do you know what?
Like,
that makes sense. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is kind of like his story as well. I never quite like that. But either way, I thought potentially it might be kind of this either way, it's this insinuation that life goes on in the trailer, right? Because there's this birth of a child, right? Regardless of how you frame, that child, whether it is an heir to the Wakandan throne, or it is the heir to I think in the MCU they're calling it the Tekloa or something. It's more it's more Aztec inspired, more it's got more that kind of roots, right?
supposed to be.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I think, and kind of we'll jump to that in a second, I think that's a really good change, and we'll kind of circle back around to that. But either way, it's very much, this trailer is about grieving, but also living, right? And I think, and struggling to, even despite all the grief and the pain and the torment, continue on and keeping going on that path. But I think Black Panther 2 might just become one of my favorite MCU movies just on its own because of how artful it looks. It looks 100% like, it looks stunning, like in so many ways, and so meaningful, right? At a time when people feel like the MCU is losing meaning, it's kind of becoming about quantity over quality. I think this is exactly the proof that it isn't, right? And I think the fact that we only have to wait till November to get it is even more glorious. But yes, I think there's a lot of quality coming out of this Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie. Do you kind of agree with me there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was a leading question, by the way. I'm very sorry if you want to disagree.
No. It's fine. No, like I said, it looks beautiful. The cinematography is amazing. There's so many beautiful shots throughout the whole trailer, and I feel like if the film's going to be anywhere as luscious as the trailer looks, then I think we're in for a real treat with it.
We're winning, we're winning for sure.
Yeah, and I'm also really excited to see where they go with a lot of the characters. I mean, you've got Shuri, you've got Okoye, you've got Nakia, got so many of these characters that we're going to learn more about. Because of the absence of T'Challa.
That's the thing.
But it's happened.
Yeah, it's obviously sad that we've lost Chadwick Boseman. Would we have preferred to have another movie with T'Challa in it? Yes, but in absence of T'Challa, in absence of Chadwick Boseman, it's great that we get this strong. I mean, it is a strong female cast, right? Because you have, I sadly do forget Angela Bassett's character's name, but T'Challa's mother. You get Shuri, you get Nakia, you get Okoye. All of these very strong Wakandan women, and I believe we're going to be introduced to a few more as well. And the idea is that they are trying to grieve for T'Challa, but equally move their nation on, because they've lost two kings, you know, T'Chaka and T'Challa. And how would you deal with that, right? But also, we've got another little subplot in that, like, you know, Namor for one. But also we've got Ironheart, which is very big, right? Because that's like, we're talking about legacy of not only then in this movie Black Panther, but legacy of Iron Man as well, which is like, obviously Robert Downey Jr. is still alive, but Iron Man was the real big, huge casualty of the MCU, right? And so seeing the legacies of those two characters kind of intertwining is very interesting, because I don't think anyone really expected it. Now, is it great that we're getting another female protagonist in this movie? Yes. And don't get me twisted on that, but I do think it's very interesting to make that choice to put Ironheart in this before, like, her origin is now going to be in a Black Panther movie, as opposed to in her series that she's going to get. Now, it might not be the case, and the Ironheart series might be set beforehand, but it's an interesting choice. I want to see how that one works, because I am still slightly dubious on that one. Not that it's going to be bad. I want to know how that fits into the Ironheart show and kind of fits into the wider MCU in terms of where it sits, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks, just from that trailer, it looks like she's got some sort of connection with Shuri. They seem to be quite good friends, just based on the little kind of like handshake that they do.
The interaction,
Just a little, So she obviously must link in with Shuri in that way, with all the technology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how that come about, how those two have met in whatever way. That might be touched on in the Ironheart series, or it might be touched on in Black Panther 2. We don't know that yet. We're going to have to wait for that. But like I said, I'd like to see that see how that friendship has come about and how that friendship is going to develop over the course of this film and series.
Yeah, impact kind of going forward, because I mean, I don't know who you believe it is, because we don't really have confirmation on this yet, but obviously we are getting a new Black Panther in this movie now. Most people assume it is a female Black Panther, because otherwise it would be like, kind of, how to put it, what people had often said about the distaste surrounding a Black Panther was that they didn't want someone to feel like they were replacing Chadwick. Now, the best way to make someone not replace Chadwick is to have a female Black Panther, right? I personally believe it's Shuri. I've heard a lot of people say it's Nakia. What do you believe? Do you believe it's Shuri, or do you believe it's Nakia?
I am leaning more towards Shuri. I feel like it definitely, because she worked on the suit initially anyway.
Yes.
She's also Charlotte's sister, Charlotte's brother. The family link is there. And yeah, it fits quite well.
Yeah.
There's obviously, there's a whole tribe of female warriors that it could be, technically.
Yes, technically, yeah.
It could have ended up being Okoye or Ayo or any of the Dora Milaje.
Yes.
It wasn't likely that it was going to be a minor character from the Dora Milaje.
No. I mean, it would be very weird unless they were set up big time in this movie, but it would still seem slightly weird, wouldn't it? I mean, Shuri's obviously taken over from Black Panther in the comics before as well, so it makes sense from a comic standpoint as well. I understand why some people might want Nakia to take over. I think it's a different angle on the same thing, right? It's the idea that it would be the lover taking on the mantle of the lost one, so to speak, which is a brilliant trope in other media, but I think in this version, Shuri is probably the best kind of aligned to take that position, especially from a standpoint of now, don't get me wrong, Black Panther doesn't necessarily mean sitting on the throne, right? Those two can be separate things. You can be Black Panther, but you don't have to be Wakandan king, queen, etc., so on, right? But I do think that Shuri has more of a connection to the wider world and the wider Avengers situation than someone like Nakia might. Now, like, that's nothing against Nakia as a character. It's just the truth, right? You know, Shuri has worked with Vision tech, right? Shuri has worked with, Captain America. I think she was aware of Everett Ross. She's dealt with Everett Ross before, Martin Freeman's character. And a million other characters that are linked to kind of the wider kind of Avengers team. Scarlet Witch, I think she's even interacted with, right? So like, it's like that situation where it from a standpoint of.
So didn't she also develop Bucky's new arm?
I believe so. I want to say yes. I mean, it's more than likely considering it's Wakandan tech. But like, so I think even from if you remove yourself from the narrative for a second, or if you remove yourself from the logical thing of like who's decided she's Black Panther, so to speak, I think from a standpoint of like where the story goes next, it's better for her to be Black Panther, because then you can easily fit her seamlessly into an Avengers roster, or you can fit her into a team up in a movie or something like that. It's a little bit more natural. It's a little bit more I keep using this a lot recently, but it has a shorthand, right? I think that's very important when you're dealing with characters coming into other movies. If you don't have that shorthand, you have to spend 10 minutes explaining something first, and that's pointless because you're wasting time on exposition at that point. So I think I'm very excited to see Shuri, I believe, as like you believe, as Black Panther. But I think we have an even bigger topic to kind of move on to, and that is the first mutant, Namor, right? Very, this is, not to put too fine a point on it, this is earth-shattering for the MCU, in my opinion, which is very, maybe poor wording, because the reason it seems that the Atlanteans, the Tekloans in this version, are coming to fight is because of earthquakes, but that's a different story. But it's earth-shattering in a sense, right? Because Namor, I know I went there, I'm sorry. Because Namor is, he's never been, like, how do I put it? He's not a character that many people will be like, overly familiar with, right? But he is one of the first. He was an adversary of the Fantastic Four, who were the Marvel's first family. And he's had interactions with many characters. He's had interactions with the X-Men, Captain America, the Fantastic Four. Like I say, he's worked with / against Doom before, Black Panther. There's like a lot of different parts of Marvel that Namor has touched. And so seeing Namor now enter the MCU, you know that he's heralding all of that, right? He's heralding this next stage kind of in the MCU. I mean, obviously we've kind of had that for a while, but he feels like the real kind of true start of what is the X-Men coming through, the Fantastic Four coming through. Like, if you'd have told me when if you'd told me when the first Black Panther was coming out that the second Black Panther would include Namor, I'd have said, fuck off, you're talking shit. Because we all, it's true though, right? We all kind of believed that like the X-Men merger would never happen. We all kind of believed the Fantastic Four were bound to never really enter the MCU. We all... Like, do you even... it's weird now, though, because now we're in a position where could you even imagine an MCU without Kang, Doctor Doom, the X-Men, Namor? All of a sudden, it seems it's all we know, right? And it's very interesting because Kang is a Fantastic Four villain as well, because it seems like the Fantastic Four have all these big-ass villains, Galactus, Silver Surfer, Doom, Namor. They have all these really strong villains as their kind of rivals, so to speak. And so if we didn't have those, who would we be facing right now? I mean, obviously there's probably many solutions within the wider Marvel universe to that problem, but it's very interesting to see how much of this phase is now influenced by, if not the Fantastic Four themselves, the origin of the Fantastic Four from the comics, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? The stories that the Fantastic Four have been a part of. And so I'm very excited about all of that. I do think, obviously, some people will rankle at how Namor has been changed, so to speak, for this. I don't see it as... It's not the same issue compared to... I think a lot of people discuss a lot of the time, and obviously they're typically wrong about it, but the kind of the race swap or the gender swap of characters. I personally believe that just let's get over it. Let's just enjoy the character as it is in its new form or its old form or its different form or it's this, that, and the other, right? Because in the whole idea of a multiverse, or the whole idea of Marvel in general, is to innovate with Spider-Man or Black Panther, or innovate with the Fantastic Four, or a million different versions. Like Spider-Man, there's normal Spider-Man, then there's Spider-Man who is Spider-Punk, that's a different Spider-Man. Then you have Ben Reilly, who's a clone of Peter Parker. Then you have Symbiote Spider-Man, which is technically Peter Parker, but it's slightly different again. Then you have Miles, then you have Spider-Woman, then you have Spider-Gwen, also called Ghost Spider. Like, you have so many characters that are just Spider-oriented, right? Now, if every character had that kind of level of variance, right, people wouldn't bat an eyelid. But it's because it's new ideas and people don't like new ideas. But anyway, that's beyond the point. Why I'm bringing that all... Well, it's not beyond the point, because why I'm bringing that all up is to say Namor is kind of the opposite of that, really, because Atlantis isn't a real fucking place. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the same as fucking saying someone's from... It's not like it's same as changing for someone from being a British in their backstory to being from anywhere else. You know what I mean? To being from America to being from, I'm blanking at the moment, but you know what I mean? It's not the same as changing nationality, race, because Atlantis is fictional. So... Yeah,
I mean, it's an underwater city. Who's really believing that this is a thing?
Exactly. And it's interesting because now I don't know too much about that kind of culture that they're trying to emulate with Namor and in Wakanda Forever. But I do remember when I was playing through Tomb Raider, the most recent Tomb Raider games, and the third Tomb Raider deals with South American culture and a lot of that type of stuff, and a lot of that kind of deific kind of culture around water and stuff like that. And I was reading on Twitter as well that it does kind of fit the life-death cycle of to do with, I mean, obviously, again, I'm talking kind of broad strokes because I'm not aware of it fully. But from what I'm hearing from the people who know the most about this type of stuff, it actually fits really well. It actually fits really well within the idea of what they're doing with the movie and what they're doing with kind of stuff in general. So I am all for it. I think it actually looks visually appealing as well. Namor has a little bit more visual, like a stunning kind of addition to his visuals because of this, like his helmet with all the feathers and all the accoutrement, so to speak. Looks really good, right?
Yeah.
But like, so what do you think? Are you kind of like, do you believe the same way, or do you kind of see it slightly differently?
He's a mutant. He's part human. He's part well, Atlantean, not Atlantean. Yeah.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So his like visual aesthetic was going to be completely different anyway to the rest of them. It was always going to be different, and when you take it for what it is.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to be what it is. It's going to be what it is anyway. We're not going to be able to bully the executives into changing it like we did with Sonic the Hedgehog or anything like that.
And that's totally different, right? It's very different again.
Situation.
Yeah. What it allows Namor to do is, it's like you've just said, it allows Namor to be something representative of something now, where he wasn't necessarily representative of anything before. Now, I do hope they keep the mutant connection. That's one thing I will say. If they don't keep him as a mutant, because obviously, I mean, we don't know whether he's going to be in the MCU as yet. But if they don't, I will be kind of sad with that, because I feel like they're playing with who is and isn't mutant a lot right now, and it's kind of frustrating. I understand that like they're doing a totally different situation. It's like you said, take it for what it is on screen. Because the thing is, for example, Kamala Khan is still Inhuman in the comics, and Namor is still Atlantean in the comics. If you want that, go and read the comics. And you know, we can go on to a whole debate about like, you know, comic accuracy is great sometimes, but it's also shit other times, right? So like there's that whole debate, which is like, that could do with a whole episode on a podcast itself, but not today. So like it's really hard, right? It's really hard to be kind of like this, that. But I think really people should start looking at the MCU as the MCU, and like you say, deal with it as it is. If you don't like it for some reason, that it is what it is. Like, I don't want representation of this. Well, then you're an idiot. Goodbye. But like,
you fuck off then. Yeah.
Exactly right. But like, look at it just as that, because I think in the MCU is so far removed from the comics now because of a million different things that have happened. You know, runs where Captain America might have shown up in a run. For example, when we get to Secret Wars, it will be Sam Cap. It won't be Chris Evans coming out of the woodworks, because people want to enjoy Sam as Captain America, right? And so, like, let them do that, you know?
Sam Wilson is Captain America now. Enjoy Anthony Mackie as Captain America, please.
Exactly.
Because Chris Evans isn't coming back as Cap. It's not happening.
At least not anytime soon. If not ever. You know what I mean? It might happen for a cameo 10 years from now or something stupid like that. But do
we get him as a variant popping up as like a little cameo?
Yeah, maybe. But he's not coming back as Cap. Never.
No.
Never.
No.
So I think people need to be very much ready for that and aware for that. But other than that, I am very happy with where the MCU is going. I think, you know, we've got a lot of projects coming up. We've got Guardians, which looks very exciting. Obviously, James Gunn has kind of come out and said this will be the last Guardians as the team is currently. Now, who knows what that means personally? I think we'll see one or two die, but the likelihood is most of them will kind of continue on in other team/ensemble cast situations. Maybe even a new Guardians emerges for a Guardians 4, right?
Yeah, the Guardians as it is now is going to be disbanded by the end of Guardians 3. But it also doesn't mean that it's the end of these characters as we know it as well. Yeah. Like you say, they can pop up in other media. They've obviously been part of things in the comics as well. So they could pop up at another point. And like you say, some of them may die. We don't know. We don't know if they will, and we don't know who if they do.
Exactly.
So we've got to be prepared for any eventuality with Guardians.
I think Guardians is very much open ended, right? Like you can do anything with that ending. One thing I will say is I feel like if they do continue the Guardians as they are, the likelihood is you will probably have. I think personally, you probably have. I don't think we're getting rid of Star-Lord yet. If I'm honest, I think Star-Lord will be around for a bit longer. I depending on how they go with the Gamora storyline, potentially Gamora as well. I think Mantis has only been in what 3 movies overall, 4. So like I think most of that was like extra time. You know what I mean? Like in the background. So like I think she will stick around, and obviously Adam Warlock is coming in this movie. Now I think Adam will end up joining their team. Whoever ends up forming the last fifth member, or whether there is a 5th member, or whether some characters leave but don't die but leave the team, who knows? But I mean, there's a million different versions. In the comic, there's Agent Venom who joins the Guardians. There's the Thing who ends up joining the Guardians. Now obviously that's not going to happen anytime soon, but you know, Kitty Pryde was also part of the Guardians, and in fact had a romance with Peter. So depending on how that goes, who knows where we end up. So like there's a million different things that could happen. I mean, I even think there's such a thing as cosmic Ghost Rider, which is Frank Castle as Ghost Rider in space, which again, wild. But what it comes down to is that like there's a lot of things you can do with potential Guardians-esque content going forward, and we're not kind of out of the woods on ensemble casts anyways, because we're getting Thunderbolts as well. Now it looks like a really good one. Zemo is probably going to be very heavily involved in that. Zemo was a big part of the Thunderbolts in the comics. At least one of the.
I'm good. I've got my little list here.
You've got your list. Go ahead.
Characters I'm assuming.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming we've got Zemo in this.
Yes.
I'm assuming we're getting Valentina in this because she seems like she's been recruiting everyone for the
It feels like she's the kind of like Nick Fury of that, right?
Yeah. I'm assuming we're getting John Walker back, US agent.
Probably, yeah. I mean, she was the one.
Obviously, Valentina was recruiting him by the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I also think Yelena.
Yes, because Valentina was recruiting her as well.
I don't know about anyone else at the end of my list, but
I think some people were insinuating Emil Blonsky as Abomination, which I think could work, especially if you're kind of trying to rip it off as an Avengers. Like, I mean, in the comics, there's a totally different team called the Dark Avengers, which is like the bad guys pretending to be the Avengers, the whole thing. But that, like, if you're kind of trying to do Thunderbolts and Dark Avengers at the same time, Abomination can be your Hulk-esque character, right? Because I mean, with that team, you have Zemo, who is kind of like. He's like a Captain America-esque character, but also like John Walker, who's a Captain America-esque character, and not. So like those two would be the kind of Captain Americas. Then you have Yelena, who's the Black Widow. Then you have Abomination, Abomination, who'd be like the Hulk. So you have those kind of characters. I mean, I'm not saying that it might not be a like for like, because I don't think we're just going to get an Asgardian falling out of the sky in Thunderbolts. But you don't know. You don't know who's going to show up in that. It could be anyone, right? So I mean, you could even, for example, I mean, you've watched Thor: Love and Thunder, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So for example, it might sound silly, but depending on how things go, we could have Hercules join that team. You never know.
Yes.
Now, I don't think it's going
to show up at some point. But...
Exactly. I don't think it's likely, but if you think about it in terms of what was Valentina trying to do against Hawkeye, right? She was trying to get Yelena to kill Hawkeye. Now, if that's what she's trying to get to do there, why wouldn't she potentially, if she knew about Thor being a potential issue, recruit someone who is a god to stop him? Now I don't
another god.
Exactly. Depending on how that goes, obviously it could happen, it might not happen. That's just kind of something that just literally popped into my head right now. I haven't been thinking about that for particularly long, so I haven't got like a solid proof on that kind of thing. But I do think it's possible. I don't think it's exciting as a thought. But yeah, I'm very excited for those projects. Otherwise, we have Echo coming, which I think Echo is going to be very interesting because it's going to deal with a lot of kind of like the backstory of Echo herself, but I think it's going to give context to why Daredevil and Kingpin have been the way they are and what they're doing and etc.
Yes, that's on my list here. About her link to Kingpin and her backstory. And also Daredevil in there as well.
Yeah, and then other than that, I think obviously the Avengers movies are very exciting. I think we can't really talk too much about them because they're kind of amorphous right now. It's the same with Fantastic Four, right? Like we can talk about the Fantastic Four for hours, but if there's no kind of real details to discuss, then it's kind of sort of pointless, right? You're kind of just talking for the sake of talking. But other than that, I do think we have Loki season 2, obviously, which we've kind of just covered. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something. Do you know? Have you got something off the top of your head?
So let's have a look. What have I got on my list?
Let's go through it.
Let's go first. Black Panther 2, we have discussed.
Yes.
She-Hulk, we've discussed. Thunderbolt, we've just got all that. Secret Invasion.
I'm very excited about Secret Invasion because we have not only Nick Fury, we have Maria Hill as well. We have Emilia Clarke playing whoever Emilia Clarke ends up playing. I do believe that they've.
So excited.
I know. I do believe they've suggested. I think I saw some rumors a while back that she'll be a Skrull, potentially one of the leaders of the Skrulls. Now that would be really interesting because it'd be a very different type of role to what I've seen her in personally myself. So I think that'd be very interesting. And Olivia Colman, which I'm very excited for. Yeah. How did they get her for a Marvel project?
Who pulled her into MCU? What is going on?
I have a little theory. Now, it's very wild, but there's a movie that's on Netflix with her and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes. I
forget its name, but I think...
I forgot his name as well, but that's the one that Anthony Hopkins just won the Oscar for, isn't it?
Yes. It's really good. I've seen a few scenes, but I haven't seen it fully, but I think it's a really good... gripping story from what I've seen in snippets. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Hopkins was like, you should get on the MCU. Now, obviously, that might not have happened, but I like to pretend that's what happened, and I love it. But have you heard the latest rumor, which we should discuss because it kind of broke last night, is that Olivia Colman will be playing Union Jack.
Oh.
Yes. Now, so Union Jack, there's a lot of different Union Jacks from the comics. There's a few different versions. None of them have been female, which is really interesting. It's very nice to see a different take. But Union Jack is essentially, I think MI6, I want to say, but it's linked to S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. Essentially, it's like a liaison between English intelligence, British intelligence, and S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comics. So what I think is very interesting is that I think that will be a really interesting role to see her in because, I mean, I haven't seen her in a million different things, but I did see her in The Crown. And in The Crown, she's playing, so that's like almost her latest role before, that movie, but also apart from that, I feel like she's kind of jumped straight to Marvel now, right? And I'm very excited to see how she acts as she's not just going to be this random kind of political character. She's going to be essentially a full-on fledged superhero, not in the sense of like your Thors or your Hulks, but she's going to be akin to a Black Widow or akin to a Hawkeye, and it's going to be very exciting to see that because I think we have a certain idea about what those kind of characters should be, and I think Olivia Colman defies that, and I'm very excited to see how that works.
Oh, absolutely.
So
she is not what you would expect as any sort of hero in the MCU. But I feel like she's going to become as beloved as Samuel L. Jackson is in the MCU. I mean, we all love him as Nick Fury. Couldn't imagine anyone else as Nick Fury now. I feel like that's going to be Olivia Colman as whoever she may go on to
may
portray,
or may not.
whether it be Union Jack, whether it be somebody else, whoever it is. I feel like we're going to take that character and we're going to love them just as much as we love Nick Fury.
Yeah. Now, my hope is she makes out at the end of the series. If she doesn't, I'm going to scream and kill someone. This is a warning to Kevin Feige. Kevin, I love you, but please don't kill Olivia Colman in a 6-part Disney Plus TV show. Please give us a little bit more than that. Give us season 2 or something, or like put her in a movie, or keep her for Captain America New Order, which we haven't talked. New World Order, which we haven't talked about.
Talked about New World Order yet. Right,
I know.
Right, okay.
So I don't know if you've heard the rumors about that one, but apparently that's meant to be the villain might be the daughter of Johann Schmidt, who is Red Skull.
Ooh,
yeah, that would be very interesting. Obviously, she'd be decently aged at this point, because I mean, how old Johann Schmidt was relatively old by the time of the war. He was in his like 50s, 60s sort of range.
Yeah.
So I mean, by the time if he'd have had to have a kid at that point, obviously, unless she's been put in some type of stasis or she's some type of super soldier, she's going to be relatively old as well, not in a horrible way, but just talking generally just about timeline. But like, so that'll be interesting, because I think you'll see kind of not Hydra per se, but some kind of resurgent element of a Hydra-esque idea, and I think that's why the title is what it is, New World Order. That sounds very scary, so I'm very excited about that too.
Yeah, that must have quite a strong link to Falcon and Winter Soldier, obviously, because because of Sam Wilson being Captain America and that link, but also the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier was called New World Order.
Was it? Now that's interesting. I didn't know that. Right. So it's like it's a real connection to that then, right? Well, I mean, obviously a lot of people are speculating that Sharon Carter obviously will be a part of that movie as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was 100% confirmed, but I mean, at this point, it's more than likely.
It's very likely, yes.
But like, potentially she works. I mean, she did have that phone call at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier where she seemed to insinuate she was dealing weapons to someone or dealing with something like that. Could she be working with Johann Schmidt's daughter, or could she be working with someone who works with Johann Schmidt's daughter, like through a person, and she realized, oh shit, what have I done? And it's a whole kind of like resolve the issue type thing. So who knows? But that's very exciting as well. Kind of brief notes on Oh, sorry.
Yeah, all I've got to say on that is, if Bucky Barnes doesn't show up at some point at all in that movie, I will scream. Ken Feige is just going to. I'm going to lose my shit with him if Bucky Barnes doesn't show up. I'm sorry.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I mean, you know me. You know me.
You're very excited about Bucky.
I'll show you that.
Yeah.
For people on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I have a Starbucks tumbler. I have a Starbucks tumbler that I have customized, and it has Bucky Barnes on it. So this is showing the obsession with Bucky Barnes.
The Bucky obsession.
It's real. It's real.
It's real.
And,
it's real.
If he doesn't show up again at all in the MCU, I'm going to scream.
Well, I mean, potentially he shows up in Thunderbolt. You never know. He could be part of that team. You don't know.
True.
But I mean, he's more likely to show up in Captain America. But yeah. So aside from those, I think we have a few. The only other project that I can think of that we haven't really touched, but we haven't really heard much about it yet, is Blade, which I'm very excited for. I am very excited for it. I do think it's going to be one that we'll have to wait on and see. Also, Agatha. Same with that as well, actually. I think Agatha will have to wait and see what's... I'm excited for Agatha. I know a lot of people have been commenting kind of on, Twitter posts and on like forums and on like YouTube videos and stuff like that, saying, why do we care about TikTok as well, actually? Why does anyone care about Agatha? And I'm like, I care about Agatha. I very much care about Agatha. I care about... She's a really good character, I personally believe. But I understand...
Agatha,
she's different. And I think... Personally, I think that's a good. I think it's a good idea. I think it'll introduce more supernatural elements other than Doctor Strange can do and Wanda can do. But I think, generally speaking, obviously, again, we'll have to kind of wait on Agatha.
Yes.
What If and Marvel Zombies is the same. We'll kind of have to wait and see what happens with those. But generally, I'm pretty excited for the future of the MCU. I think it's funny because when I was talking to Andy last week, I don't know how much of that you ended up catching, Chazzlet, but I was talking about the fact, and we were talking about the fact, is there a plan? And we did say that there is one, but I think we needed to see it materialize. I do feel like we're seeing it materialize now, and it's very exciting, especially because we are now moving towards D23 in just over a month. And there's going to be 8 more projects apparently announced there. So who knows what we might get there? Who knows what that's going to mean? I'm very excited. But yeah, it looks like it's a great time to be an MCU fan. It's a great time. It's a great time to not think that all these movies are made. But so I think we've kind of covered the broad points. So Chazzlet, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me tonight. I really appreciate it. It's been really fun. I think we've got a really great discussion about, like, especially the new stuff that's coming very soon, but also kind of the future. Thank you everyone who has been listening at home, whether or watching at home as well, obviously whether on YouTube or Apple, etc. and so on. If you guys want to see more content from us, look up for What It's Nerd. That is FORWAT. Oh gosh, I've lost it there. Yes, I've lost it. Let me start again. That is FORWAT_ITSNERD. I got it in the end. Thank you guys for. There we go. Thank you guys. I'll see you later.